Welcome, I'm Justin McConaughey with Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, run our produce safety program. This here is the Eastern Oklahoma State College. It's like a teaching greenhouse. So when we're doing our inspections with food safety, we're thinking about how can we grow and harvest produce in a way that's safe and less likely to get pathogens on it from the start, because your fresh lettuce you typically eat cooked. And so therefore we have to prevent pathogens getting on it from the start. In a greenhouse, it really helps cut down a lot of those problems. Even though we have livestock just outside here, those livestock and their feces is generally most likely not going to get in here because of the walls and roof around us. So that's a nice thing about greenhouses. But we do need to worry about our water, because water can pass those pathogens on. So we need to start with good, clean water, prefer city water or rural water district. If not that, then at least have a well that's been tested for 0 E. coli. And this being an aquaponics type system, fish do not carry E. coli and other human pathogens normally. However, if you introduce it to their system, then they could carry it. And so that's really important to start with fish from a clean system, use clean water, and then try to prevent contaminating that water as it sits here, because this water gets recycled a lot. So that means when people come in, we want to make sure that people are clean. They wash their hands after using restroom, things like that. So as you walked in, there was a small hand washing station that ideally for a production facility, this teaching greenhouse, like it's not made for food, at least selling food. So typically when a person would enter into a facility, they would have to be told what the rules are for that facility for food safety. They have to wash their hands, wear clean clothes, things like that. And then when we get to harvesting, we make sure that we use clean knives or what tools that we're using for harvesting. Make sure they're clean and sanitized. So that means cleaning them off and then using some kind of sanitizer. Now, I know I grew up using pocket knives, right? Anyone know how to sanitize a pocket knife? Huh? Wipe on your jeans? There you go. That's what I was looking for. Wipe on your jeans. No, we don't do that unless you're out working calves. No. Yeah, you got to use soap, just like washing dishes, soap and water, and then sanitize with some kind of sanitizer solution, usually like a bleach solution. But we want to make sure that we use the proper bleach solution. Read the labels, make sure that we have that proper solution, because too much bleach does nothing and actually can be harmful because the gas is off, and too little bleach, of course, will do nothing. Also, bleach does not like hot water, so use it standard like room temperature water. When it comes to water, we need to protect our water sources. So back here in this corner here, you have a double backflow valve. That thing helps prevent any water from this facility going back into the city or the well system that the water came from. So we need to protect our sources, especially if we have a well. We want to protect our source because once that source gets contaminated, then we have a big problem. I wanted to show also, we have two different systems here. Most of this greenhouse is this gravel bed system, but this is another way that aquaponics are grown, and I'm sure they'll talk about all this stuff later. Yeah. But anyways, this is called a raft system. This can be done, it's totally fine. However, I would caution you to use this for food safety. In my opinion, this is a lot better than the raft system, because when you come to harvest this raft, a lot of people they'll grab that raft and take it over to a table to harvest. Now think about it, if I picked up this raft right now, what's going to happen to that? If I carry it over here and I'm walking over here, there's water on those roots, and it's going to drip down on top of this lettuce. It's going to drop down on that. It's going to get on everything. So, and that's when we're into harvesting, we need to make sure that our water is completely safe. And so we don't know for sure the quality of this water. So we don't want to drip it on something we're going to harvest. Once we get to harvest, we have to have zero E. coli water. It has to either be tested well or from the city. It can't be a surface water, and this technically would be considered a surface water. Okay, I think that's... Oh, do I have any questions? Sorry.
So you like the gravel because you don't pick it up and you have to cut it?
Yeah, you have to cut it here, so you're cutting above the soil level, and so that's the safer way than grabbing a raft that could just drip all over everything. And that's the idea behind that. Yeah, I mean, people, if this can still be done, you just want to think about, okay, how am I going to pick this up? How am I going to prevent getting my hands dirty? If I get my hands dirty, I got to wash them again before I cut them. And then, yeah, how do I get this from here to the harvest table without dripping on all over everything?
That's the first time I've heard somebody give a presentation where they talk about fish being cold-blooded, how that affects the potential for foodborne illness in the system. So that's great. Also, to your point, I think the media, what this really does is it provides a lot of biological surface area for beneficial bacteria to grow. And it's the bacteria that's responsible for the aquaponic cycle. But speaking directly to food safety, having a good biological biome is the #1 way that you can prevent becoming sick, whether it's you as an individual or from a system standpoint. So there's new literature that's just now coming out from the USDA, and it's Dr. Pat Milner from the ARS, which is Agricultural Research Services. And she has done a great benefit to the aquaponic industry, in my opinion, because what she has showed with replicated scientific research is that an aquaponic system, if managed correctly, produces the safest food possible. #1, because the roots don't ever come into contact with the nutrient-rich water. So that's a good place to start to be able to separate aquaponics from other styles of growing. But #2, what her research found was she actually inoculated aquaponic systems with E. coli. And she found over a very short period of time that the amount of E. coli in the system began to decrease. Talking within 48 hours, you could see a reduction of the E. coli. And over a period of about a 45-day period, I believe, don't quote me, the E. coli was no longer measurable in the system. So what that lends itself to saying is that a healthy aquaponic system, the beneficial bacteria within the system can actually outcompete some of these foodborne illness. I know she's going to repeat that test with Listeria, and we'll see if the test is replicated by other food scientists as well. So on a floating raft, the only space that beneficial bacteria has to grow is on the bottom of that raft within those nooks and crannies. With one handful of media, you almost have more biological surface area than an entire greenhouse full of styrofoam rafts. So I can't tell you that definitely because it's never been tested, but my theory is, along with the food safety standpoint, the media itself will play a key role in helping keep the system clean in the long term. Now, this system here is a teaching system, and it's kind of one of those do as he says, not as we do scenarios. But in the past, when we were in production, especially when we had USDA organic certification, a couple of things I can tell you that will help fit within the parameters that were described. #1, we use bleach test strips to make sure that we never got above, I believe it was 30 parts per million of bleach, because that amount can easily go from a straight dip to kill any instance of foodborne bacteria to the plant without any concern for damaging the plant or having too much bleach content. Okay, additionally, you'll see all the beds and rows are marked, okay, to give us some means of tracking what we plant, and they're marked on the other side, might be hard to see, okay? And a means of being able to go back and change out, stop, redo production within any given bed. Okay, so those food safety concerns are very real, and for any person that's going to try to take their product all the way to market, there's other things known as good agricultural practices that you need to look at, to implement into your production as well. So from a food safety standpoint, I think he did a wonderful job and gave us all information that we can walk away with. So, does anybody have any questions from a food safety standpoint? Okay, so what I want to do, because I have no problem being loud, is go ahead and let's move the group back to the front of the greenhouse. I want to talk a little bit about how the system works, and then I actually want to turn it over to a volunteer from GSO who has really helped make this system go. Okay, I'll remind everybody that everything they see as we walk through this greenhouse, on January 30th of this year, there was 0 life in this system. The fish are only in 1 tank right now because we brought them over from a commercial grow just to start that process again, okay? And every crop that you see was either started from seed, volunteered, or was propagated from plants within the system. Okay, so pay attention to the biodiversity. One thing that I did notice walking through is we need to go ahead and get our fish loads up. Now that we have all this product that's actually growing in here, we're going to have to increase that nutrient content a little bit, and we may have to look at supplementing some micro and macronutrients just to really round out what we're doing. So with that being said, as long as you're able to highlight what crops we're growing and what you're doing with them, we'll come back up to the front and I'll talk about the mechanics of the system before turning it over to some of the people that have been responsible for getting the system back operational. Okay, so here we are at the front of the aquaponic greenhouse at Eastern Oklahoma State College. What I'm going to do is talk just a little bit about the system design and how this system functions, as well as what the new technology looks like in the aquaponic industry. So number one, aquaponics is a combination of aquaculture and hydroponics. Okay? Technically, hydroponics is just a term for germinating and growing a seed in water. So aquaponics is a subsection, but there are a lot of things that differentiate the two. The first being here. Okay? So the fish are actually in this tank currently. We're in the process of bringing the system back online after it was dormant over winter. And the way that the tank's set up is that these fish tanks have a conical bottom. Okay? If you look down underneath, you can kind of see that. The point of the conical bottom is to help the fish solids gather at the bottom of the tank as they pass via gravity to a sump tank that's actually buried outside. It's tough to see that tank from here, but that tank acts as the reservoir for the water falling from the fish tanks as well as from the grow beds. So another thing that we do to try to improve food safety as the system is we filter the water before it returns back to the fish tanks and before it goes into the grow beds. Okay? What this does is it allows us to pull any excess solid waste out of the system that can then be reintroduced later in the form of mineralized nutrients to help naturally offset some of the deficiencies that you'll see in an aquaponic system. Okay? After the water falls from the fish tank to the sump tank, it's pulled with that pump through the filter where the water flow is diverted to the grow beds and back to the fish tanks. Okay? Once the water comes into the grow beds, through this mechanism, there is a siphon on the inside of the bed. As water pressure rises and builds on this cap, water drains from a standpipe that's located inside that screen, back underneath the bed, and back out to the sump tank where the entire process repeats over and over again. Okay? This system here was built about 7 years ago. So the technology that it utilizes is still a very rudimentary technology, but it works, it functions well, and it can grow a diversity of crops as you're seeing here. The next generation of aquaponic systems are not bell siphon based systems. They're actually automated. So we went in and given the end user more control over the flood and drain rates in a bed, because different crops like different amounts of water. So with a siphon, you're limited to 1 speed in, 1 speed out. With our new automated style systems, you're able to tailor your nutrient delivery and your water based upon an individual row, rather than having 1 speed for the entire system. Okay? What this has enabled us to do is cut down on the overall water needed to operate a system, actually about in half. And in addition to that, we no longer have to have sump tanks that are buried outside. We can have above ground tanks, which makes systems more feasible in areas that have issues with freezing grounds. Okay? Additionally to that, we pioneered a new nutrient development or nutrient delivery mechanism, where we're actually combining aquaculture with aeroponics. So we're misting the roots of the plant with the nutrient-rich water from the fish tank. So in terms of the system, I believe aside from food safety benefits, that every system should incorporate at least a little grow media, because it can be a useful tool to assist in filtration and a useful tool to assist in starting seeds that can then get transplanted into the rest of the system. So here, I'm going to guess we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 20 different species of crops that are currently growing. But to talk a little bit more about those, I'm going to pass them over here to Miss Williams and let her give a breakdown of how she's been working with the system and how GSO has really stepped in to help revitalize this greenhouse.
Thank you, Kevin. I am Lisha Williams. I am a volunteer for Good Samaritan Outreach. If you are a Facebook user, please like our Facebook page and follow us, because we're always updating about our aquaponics adventures, and it has been an adventure. This is my first time ever doing anything like this, and it has been a journey. When we walked in here, I think it was during the first ice storm of the year, this place was kind of overgrown, hairy, and very dead. Everything was crunchy, and so myself and a couple of other volunteers here from Wilburton were able to come in here, clean all the beds out, get rid of all the root systems. We had to kind of wash the medium out. And then the exciting part was once we got all the dirty stuff out of here and the old stuff out of here and got the water flowing through, we got to start playing with seeds. And I had no idea what I was doing, so I have a very large crop of purple cauliflower leaves. No purple cauliflower, but purple cauliflower leaves. How did I know one package of seeds would make so many plants? I did not know that. But again, it's been a fun process of learning. I have successfully grown peas, green beans. I've got some butterwax green beans back there in the corner hidden behind the green pile of leaves. We got some tomatillos that were basically some volunteer plants. We've got several volunteer tomatoes. I was lucky enough to have some very strange tomatoes that I had great success with, which was a Bosch Blue Bumblebee. It's got a blue top and a yellow underneath. It's a cherry tomato. When you bite into it, you get 3 different flavors. I've got several of those still floating around here, and I'm trying to get some to go so I can have some for seeds next year so I don't have to buy seeds. I also have a black strawberry tomato, which again is another little cherry tomato, and then a white tomato that I'm really interested in trying to get seeds out of as well. Several different types of basil. Lemon basil is everywhere because again, I used one package of seeds. Who knew it would make so much? And then also we had some volunteer basil come up out of one of the beds from some seeds that was there for I don't know how long ago, but we have successfully just kept snipping it off and repropagating it. So you'll see several different things of the Genovese basil floating around, and those all came from about 3 plants because I just kept snipping them and sticking them into the grow medium, and they would root, and then we'd grow, and then we just kept dividing them out. From the point of Caben saying that each one of these beds has the same flow rate and different seeds take different amounts of water, I learned that the hard way. You know, but it again been a challenging, fun process. Sometimes zucchini grew and sometimes it didn't, and sometimes yellow squash took over the whole bed, and sometimes okra didn't, and then other times it took off in other beds. So it's been a great learning process. Good Samaritan Outreach, we have acquired a small grant for a building next to our facility right now, and we are in the process of remodeling that. So that is why we came in here with the help of Caben and Symbiotic, so we could do a fundraiser for our new building so we can have our own aquaponics center. And we're going to be raising hopefully up to 3,000 pounds of food per year to help distribute to the different shelters in town, and then also Eastern State Food Bank. So I appreciate all of your support. Again, like us on Facebook, follow us. I am the growth coach. I'm also a mentor at GSO, and I love seeing the change in the men when they get their hands in the dirt, play media, and when they get to just see something grow in front of their eyes, and then they get to baby that plant from this big and they get to see it fruit. We have peas over here, and every time one of the volunteers comes with me, we snap off a few green beans and a few peas, and we just have a little snack. So with that, I don't know who I'm supposed to hand this over to.
I'll take it.
Yeah, sticky.
Yeah, a little sticky, but really great work by the volunteers. I couldn't take any credit for the growth of the system, except for maybe for the plants that volunteered, because those were seeds that I planted wrong so long ago that finally decided to make their way. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, if you were listening earlier, what we talked about was collaboration, right? And this greenhouse now seeing life, even if it's just leaves currently, it's still much better than how this facility was previously. So I appreciate the help of all the people that put time, effort, and energy into it. Additionally, I'll give Daniel Wilson another shout out as well. Pretty sure Daniel Wilson's like one of 4 people in the world that actually knows how to backwash this system correctly. So we lean on him in times when our flow rates get low and our bell siphons begin to lag. So thank you to Daniel for that. With that being said, do we have any other questions about the aquaponics system, about food safety, about anything that I can answer for you? So if we stay away from like quantum physics and time travel and maybe even advanced algebra, I'd appreciate it. Yeah. Question?
So if we wanted to experiment with this like on our own, where would we start? Like where would we go to find product?
Okay. So where are you located, if you don't mind me asking?
Ramona, Oklahoma, so it's north of Tulsa, south of Marshall.
Okay, so we're really lucky in the fact that we have partnerships with a number of universities as well as schools. So if you'll shoot over an email to one of us, get it to me somehow. And the best way is to find a system and get yourself plugged in. A lot of the schools would love to have an additional set of hands. If you're local to Eastern, the doors here are literally always open. Probably not great from a food safety standpoint, but from a teaching standpoint, about the best that you can have to offer. Okay, so let's find a place and we'll be happy to get you plugged in one way or another. Also, my organization always needs help. I know so do the other aquaponic farmers, so the best way to learn is by doing, even if that's doing incorrectly, because throughout the process you'll learn. You're welcome. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, so shameless company plug. Okay, we have a small scale system as well that can basically be implemented in any classroom, that can be implemented in any window. It's set up on wheels so you can roll it inside or outside. So if the weather's good, you don't have to worry about having the additional LED light. The kit also comes with an LED light. Okay, now with that being said, a lot of the aquaponic industry prides itself in being a do-it-yourself industry. I appreciate that. I would much rather people do aquaponics or try to do aquaponics than not. So there's a lot of really good resources. Off the top of my head, a guy named Rob Bob on YouTube does a good job about teaching a lot of do-it-yourself practices. Sometimes people will utilize IBC totes as an input to make both their grow bed and their fish tank. I would recommend looking into what the use of that IBC tote was ahead of time and making sure that in Oklahoma specifically, it wasn't holding any products for the petroleum industry. Those are forever chemicals, and I wouldn't recommend incorporating those into your food production from a food safety standpoint as well. Okay, so check into that. One of my competitors, the Aquaponics Source, also has some small scale systems. So, feel free to check into us doing it yourself and our competitors and find out what's going to work best for you.
How much does a starter cost?
So our small scale system for people in Oklahoma is $1,500. It's $2,000 to ship anywhere in the U.S., but close, it's about $1,500.
What about one grow bed and filter?
Yeah, so that's another thing you can do is you can kind of blend the products, I'll call us the pros, the products the pros use with stuff at your home. Okay, so like a grow bed, for example, a single grow bed is about $300. Filters get smaller, okay, and get more accessible, so down to about $500 to $600 at the most basic level. I would recommend, even if you can't afford a mechanical filter, sometimes those aren't within the cost range for people. Even incorporating media can help you achieve some of that filtration. You may have to wash your media. This media here has never been changed. It's been washed in the grow beds where it stands, but it's never been taken out and moved back in. And the reason is because of the filter. Okay, so better filtration will make your life easier. The last thing I'll leave you with, if we don't have any more questions. Yeah, please.
So how much faster do plants grow in aquaponics versus in the garden?
Okay, so that's a little bit of a loaded question, but I'll try my best to answer it. The question was, how much faster do plants grow? Okay, this will be a good time to introduce what I was saying. Okay, there's 3 reasons that an aquaponic farm failed: bad system design, operator error, and a lack of a solids management plan. Okay, what I say I can do, what he says he can do, what she says she can do, those could all be different things. Okay, but the benefit of aquaponics is that the water that's coming in is nutrient-rich water, and the root structures are constantly being inundated with that water. Forgive me for a food safety faux pas, but it is a teaching greenhouse. So what that means is that root structures grow straight down, as opposed to spreading out to compete for nutrients and water. You're able to pack plants in more closely together because those root structures aren't going out as wide. Additionally, because you're in a climate-controlled environment, a lot of the time, what you'll find is you decrease seasonality issues. So whereas an outdoor farmer may only have the opportunity to get 1 lettuce harvest or 2 lettuce harvests in a year, in a greenhouse in a controlled environment, you can get upwards of 9 to 10 in a year. So when you say that it grows more quickly, a little bit of it is true, as long as it's a water-loving crop, okay? Some crops, I think, We will be able to prove in the future they grow more quickly, but without more crop-specific research, I'm not going to make that claim. Okay?
Alright, so does it matter what kind of fish you use? Say if I wanted to kill 2 birds with one stone and have fish that I want to harvest for food, can I do that, or do you specifically just use koi?
Yeah, so we use koi here again because it's a teaching facility. Okay, actually, when we did have our aquaculture license and we were all in where we needed to be with the state, we had tilapia in here, and my wife and I served it at our wedding. Okay, so tilapia, catfish, koi, striped bass, perch, freshwater prawn, barramundi. There's a whole host of freshwater species that have been used in aquaponics. What I'll recommend for the benefit of the state folks here as well is that you try to use a fish species that's either native to your area. That way you don't run the risk of introducing an invasive species. Or in the case of something like a tilapia, even if it does get introduced over winter, it's going to die because water temperatures get too low for a tilapia to survive. Okay, but we do see instances like in Florida where tilapia have escaped from captivity one way or another and been introduced into the water streams, and now they're wreaking havoc on the local water supplies. Okay, so try to keep into consideration your local fish populations and what already does well in your location, because they're guaranteed to be able to withstand the temperature shifts that you're going to see. Okay. Okay, chemicals. Okay, in order to maintain organic certification, the only chemicals that we use in the systems here are potassium, magnesium, and calcium carbonate, as well as iron. Okay, those systems are all on the USDA certified organic input list. They all help with providing some of the micronutrients that some of these plants are lacking right now. We haven't dosed this system at all with any of those. I don't even know if we've checked the pH here, to be perfectly honest with you. So part of the food safety programs should always include regular water quality tests. I recommend getting your water sent off at least quarterly, but even better if you can do it with each harvest, have them test for those foodborne illnesses and your nutrient content all at the same time. What that'll do is give you a level of protection to where if you sell your produce to someone that does introduce foodborne illness, you'll have something that you can check off that shows when you sent this out, your water quality was good. If your water quality is good and your handling practices are good, that's going to reduce the liability for the farmer. So always reduce liability, reduce liability, reduce liability. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much. Feel free to walk around, hang out, grab some seeds, throw them in, see what happens. You know, that's what we're here for. So thank you all. Thank you to OLAC for the opportunity to speak today at the conference, and thank you all for taking the time to come out to check out the greenhouse. Anything you see, any ways we can improve, we're the first to know. I appreciate the grace from the food safety folks and the opportunity to come in and learn, because that's why we're here. So thank you all very much, and y'all have a great day.